Okay, so this is going to be
Oh,
an
gotta have
unscripted
it.
amateur speculation podcast. As I am still new to this whole editing software sort of thing, there won't be any visualizations on screen. So for anyone listening, this can just be thrown up in the background and enjoyed as a type of unscripted podcast, so to speak. And today we are going to be discussing Messmer, Melina, and the Elden Lord that sired them. Now, if over the course of this 10, you might come to the conclusion that I'm going for, I would ask that you keep it to yourself until I reveal it, just for the sake of pacing,
No problem.
since this will be this will be uploaded publicly for other people to see. So, let's get this out of the way right away. Melina is the Glowmite Queen. We all know that. We like everything in the game points towards it. The ending of the Frenzied Flame, item descriptions, her history. And we know from the Godskin Swaddling Cloth item that she cradled the newborn Godskin apostles and nurturing them to become, quote unquote, the death of the gods. And I want you to keep that in mind. That phrasing in particular, the death of the gods. I will upload that item description here. Let's see here. Messmer, on the other hand, his whole thing is that he is infested with serpents that are sealed away by Marika's grace that she placed in his eye. And that's one of the things that is connecting them is like there's this mutual serpent imagery because you know the Godskins, they have like serpentine bodies, the god devouring serpent. They're like serpents in Elden Ring are synonymous with treachery. Now, all Empyreans bear a signature butterfly that represents them, correct? The Aeonia for Melania, the Nascent for
Yeah.
Miquella, the Smoldering for Melina, and now we have the Black Flame Pyrefly for Messmer. This means Messmer and Melina are Empyreans. This leaves the rather glaring exception being Ranni, the only Empyrean whom Marika did not bear herself. The Glowmite Queen in lore was also suggested to be an Empyrean, and the as we know, the Godskin also blocked the way to the Church of Igle. And uh, we know for a fact that Melina lost her purpose long, long ago, left burned and bodiless by her own admission. And we also know that the Glowmite Queen was defeated by Malekith the Black Blade. As for Messmer, Messmer was feared by Marika and banished to the Lands of Shadow. Coincidentally, the country of Marika's origin, the Newman people, also known as the Shamans. And he was framed as a pariah and sentenced to crusade against the Hornsent, the former oppressors of the Newman. So, with this in mind, we know Marika is not above sacrificing her children as means to fulfill her own ambitions. And
Mhm.
this can explain why Malekith has such a fearsome reputation among the other demigods. It is said that not one did not fear his blade. Now, the question becomes, who is the father of Melina and Messmer? We know the golden lineage was sired by Godfrey, Godwyn, Morgott, and Mohg. Was sired by Godfrey, and the children were Godwyn, Morgott, and Mohg. And the Carian demigod lineage that was sired by Radagon and Rennala was Rykard, Radon, and Ranni. And then Radagon went on to have two Empyrean children of Marika, that being Miquella and Melania. And a lot of his children, most of them, bear one common trait, and that is the signature red hair of his. The only one I think that doesn't have his red hair is Mikola, so it's not exactly 100%, and neither is his, Empyrean seed, as Rykard and Radon are not Empyreans themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, as we know, Messmer and Melina also have red hair. So that pretty much leaves it cut and clear, right? Radagon is the father of Messmer and Melina? Except that doesn't sit right with me. Does that sit right with you?
I mean, it's kind of sounds like an asshole.
There's too many gaps in the connection there. The union of America and Radagon came after Godfrey was exiled and lost his grace. So, but the lore of Messmer and Melina suggests they existed before America and Radagon. How else could they be so easily stricken from the record in every ounce of the Golden Order's testaments? And one of the finest examples being Morgott. Morgott, in his final fight, he lists each of his siblings one by one as traitors. Ranni, Godric, Radon, Rykard, Mikola, and Melina. Yet he doesn't mention Messmer. And Messmer does harbor treacherous intentions towards America. Now, there are other siblings that are also admitted, namely being Godwyn, Melina, and Mohg. But since Godwyn and Melina are most likely considered dead by this point, it makes sense he wouldn't acknowledge them as traitors. That just leaves Mohg and Messmer. As for Mohg, I have a separate theory for that. I think Morgott believes the sewer Mohg is real, and that he never abandoned him. I think that illusion was left there to fool him while Mohg was enchanted away by Mikola. Either a spell cast by Mohg under infatuation or by Mikola himself. That just leaves Messmer. Why wouldn't Morgott acknowledge Messmer? Simple, Messmer's birth and exile predates Morgott's birth. And the birth of the Golden Lineage as a whole. So, before Godfrey, then, yes. Then, did Marika and Radagon have children prior to her marriage to Godfrey? I don't think so. There are some other details we need to look into. And I know what that sounds like. It sounds like I'm suggesting there was a third consort to Marika. And that's exactly right.
Huh.
We are pretty much up to date on Melina's lore for right now with the Godskins and her defeat, but one thing we need to talk about is Messmer and his soldiers. Now, Messmer's soldiers and him all bear a unique signature aesthetic to their armor. Each armor is said to be crafted with black iron and often embroidered with small traces of gold. Now, this design motif is very rarely seen in the base game. In fact, there is only one other armor set that borrows this type of aesthetic.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is where it gets crazy.
I don't like where this is going. Yeah.
Now, Messmer's fire is also said to have strange spiritual properties, able to compel bodies back from the dead in its rituals. It should be noted that this fire is also depicted as a mixture of black and red, very similar to another type of fire that we also see in the base game. Now, if we go back to see Melina met her defeat being burned alive and left bodiless, And who was the one that defeated her again? The one whose name means death of the demigods? Yeah. That the basic premise is I believe Malekith is the father of Messmer and Melina.
What the fuck?
That's insane, right? Stay with me here,
I,
okay? Stay with me
mm,
here. Let's take a look at the description of Malekith's armor. Black iron and gold, the same as Messmer and his soldiers. And when he enlists you to help pursue Deathroot, what does he give you? The Beast Eye. The
mm,
the Beast Eye, and this Beast Eye has a very interesting hue to it. It almost looks identical to Melina's Gloam Eye, one that is sealed up until the point of Malekith's death.
yeah.
And as I said before, Messmer also had his snakes sealed behind a grace implanted in his eye. Now, we never see Malekith's actual eyes. His helmet blocks it. And I believe the reason for that is because Melina was born with one of his eyes. I believe if we saw Malekith's eyes, they would be gloam-eyed.
Mm.
And coincidentally, what does Melina promise you in the Frenzied Flame ending? To deliver you unto what is yours, destined death. And it is because of her sacrifice that you get to walk the road of destined death in order to confront Malekith in the first place. And what is guarding the way to Malekith? The Godskin duo. That's right, the Godskin duo, the servants of the Gloam-eyed Queen. And isn't it funny that Melina's fighting style, as seen in the battle with Morgoth, is identical to that of the Black Knives, Newman of Marikastock, who just so happened to wield Destined Death flawlessly with the same bestial agility and techniques as Malekith himself? I believe wholeheartedly that the Black Knives once served under her during her reign as the Gloam-eyed Queen before her defeat and the plundering of the Rune of Death. And if you look at the flame effect of Destined Death when Malekith wields it, it looks shockingly close to the description of Messmer's flame. And as we've seen, neither Radagon or Godfrey have a huge association to fire in their history. But according to the butterflies of Messmer and Melina, they were both children that foresaw visions of fire. We know Malekith is referred to as Marika's half-brother and a shadowbound beast given to her by the Greater Will. But what if he was gifted not as a shadow, but a consort? Now I know what you might be thinking. Okay, even though a precedent has been set for homosexual incest and self-cest, that is still courtship between two humans. And even if Malekith is more intelligent than just a mere beast, FromSoft would never go as far to suggest interspecies crossbreeding in one of their games, right?
Oh, good buddy.
Oh, wait.
It's happened in the DLC.
It not only has it happened before, but
We've seen it happen.
you might recognize this certain character.
Oh.
That's right, crossbreed Priscilla. And let's take a look at what Priscilla is exactly. A crossbreed bastard child that was born with abilities that were seen as antithetical to life itself, and so she was banished to a realm where all undesirable entities are exiled to. Now, while making one-to-one comparisons between Souls games is a fruitless endeavor, and it will often result in contradictions, the answer often lies between the parallels. And hell, Bloodborne was an entire game of cosmic entities trying to interbreed with humans. Now, now here's where we enter hard speculation territory. I think when Marika plucked the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring, she gave it to Melina originally for safekeeping. But she instead intended to weaponize it against the Golden Order. She raised up the Godskins, preparing her own army, so Marika sent Malekith to strike her down. And in fear of destined death threatening her order, she sealed the Rune of Death within him and exiled Malekith under the guise of Geraint to keep the Rune of Death secured. All the while wielding his name as a threat against her future children, should they entertain the notion of blasphemous and treacherous ambitions. And she later sentenced Messmer to the Lands of Shadow out of fear of him, and struck him, his sister, and her marriage to Malekith from the annals of history before marrying Godfrey. And I think the reason Godfrey had Sarosh grafted to him was for more than just keeping his bloodlust in line. I believe Sarosh was made regent to placate the Beastkin, giving them political representation now that Malekith was gone. And I believe when Godwyn was slain, and Deathroot began to spring over the lands between, Marika tasked Malekith with consuming it, promising him his lordship restored upon completing his quest, while he remained none the wiser that his title was already claimed. This is what I believe he was referring to when he cries out about Marika gulling him at the when he is killed in his boss fight, as he is stared face to face with the tarnished successor to what was originally his throne. And Marika is no stranger to plotting a solution to multiple problems with one act. I have no doubt she had multiple reasons for betraying Malekith. Messmer's banishment, after all, was her taking care of two birds with one stone, sicking him on the horn scent and getting rid of him as a cursed being. So she is more than capable of multifaceted schemes. Now you may be thinking, okay, but there's no way the Greater Will would have a non-human Elden Lord as a consort to its god Empyrean, right? Except there's one more Elden Lord we have yet to cover. The earliest recorded Elden Lord, Dragon Lord Placidusax. Placidusax is the earliest recorded Elden Lord in Elden Ring's history. And he lost his title when his god fled, which I presume to be as a result of Baal devastating his body.
Sounds about right.
The point being, the Greater Will doesn't care if the Elden Lord is human or not. It doesn't care what type of order is established. All it wants is an order. And that is what I believe to be the origin of Messmer and Melina.
Fuck.
Does it? It makes sense though, right?
I mean,
there's more pieces pointing towards Malekith than there is to Radagon and Godfrey.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like how kind of well it kind of fits together.
You don't like Marika being Whitney, Wisconsin?
Well, I mean, we saw it with Mikola and Radon just about.
Like, they were, yeah, and that's the thing, is like, Mikola and Radon, Mikola was very open about the fact that Radon was his brother. So, it's pretty clear, like, there are very few boundaries between an Elden Lord consort and the God Empyrean. And that's all. There's much more to this, and this is just an amateur bit of speculation rambling. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we can get started on the seamless co-op DLC.
Sounds good.